Hi everybody, welcome to my first podcast. I don't know why I'm so happy about that, but I've always wanted to start a podcast, and I was writing down names, but never was like super serious about like starting one, and wasn't sure what to talk about, and it just kind of like a couple years went by, and then months went by, and I'm like, okay, I kind of want to, because everybody was doing it. I'm a little behind the curve now, but I figured to do it while I have the time. So welcome to my first podcast called Touching Grass While Sitting on My Ass. And yes, that rhymes. You don't have to look into it. It definitely rhymes. Today on the first podcast, you know what I mean. Today on the first episode, we're going to talk about fantasy football because it is around the corner, and I'm enthralled by fantasy football. It's almost like playing a video game, but it's like with real life stats. Like you get to draft a team, you get to potentially trade depending on who you're in. There's different leagues that you can win money in. There's different leagues that it's a keeper league where, say you pick, Christian McCaffrey, you pick him, and then you can keep him next year. I'm not too familiar with the keeper leagues. I don't do a lot of the keeper leagues. I just do the typical, just the regular PBR leagues, which I'm again not sure what they stand for. But honestly, I just enjoy it so much. So we're just gonna jump right into it. And we're gonna first talk about the most important position. And it's not the position that you think. You would think quarterback, but it's actually wide receiver. Wide receiver is one of the most important positions because, yeah, at least for fantasy, because with a quarterback, you're just getting distance throws and like how, like, if they throw the ball for 20 yards and then get a touchdown, that's, I don't know, I forget what the actual like thing is, but you get 20 points, I think, with that, which is pretty good. Like that's pretty good standard for quarterbacks. But with a wide receiver, you can get touchdown points, you can get catch points, you can get distance points, you can get even after catch points, like how many yards they get after they caught the ball. So let's just jump right into the one of the many lists out there. It's really a little subjective. Everybody has a different list of who's the best, who's the worst. It really depends on what's going to happen this year, depends on what happened last year. I'm just going to look up the fantasy points of last year just to show you that things can be different. But for now, let's just look at the okay, so fair enough. Quarterback is important. They do get a lot of points. You will get the most points for quarterback, but they are what's the word? A high risk, high reward. Like, yeah, I mean, at least for the top quarterbacks, you're pretty much, you know who you're gonna get. Like last year's top player was Patrick Mahomes, and then it went Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Joe Brown, Geno Smith, which, see, again, is high risk, high reward. This year, the best quarterbacks are, the best quarterback, the same list: Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields. The list goes on and on and on until, like, yada yada. I have been told several times, don't pick a quarterback too early, but I've been screwed in the past, the last 2 years of playing fantasy football. I haven't drafted a quarterback early on. Yeah, I haven't drafted a quarterback early on, and I've gotten screwed. I've just had to pick up whatever quarterbacks were left. And the funny thing was, the last 2 years I've drafted the same quarterbacks, which was Aaron Rodgers and Trevor Lawrence, which you think, oh, that's pretty good picks. but not really. Like, they don't have anybody to throw to. Now it may be different for Rodgers being on the Jets, but it could be worse. You never know with fantasy football. The important thing that I've learned, that I've remembered, is look at the first week. Look at the guys that aren't necessarily a big name, but they got like 10 points in the first week. But then look at the team. So an example right here is, and I'm probably going to say a bunch of these names wrong, but Raheem Stevenson on the Patriots. And I'm a big Patriots fan. And for years he was always like the third string backup, but now that they don't have White, and they don't have I forget the other running back that they had before, now Raheem is their starting quarterback. And since they don't really have a lot of like high-end wide receivers, Raheem's probably a good bet to draft. Now, the thing with the running backs is not a lot of people draft running backs, so you may get a good running back early on, because a lot of people draft wide receivers. Some people do draft running backs, but a majority of people draft wide receivers. Like this year, with 4 people across the board, ironically though, it is a running back heavy year. Though last year, and you kind of do have to compare last year's stats and the years before that, because yes, every year is different, but you kind of have to think of what they did last year. Like every year they always have Saquon Barkley high up on the rankings compared to all positions, but every single year he never really quite gets there. Like you see his name because somebody cuts him, or like you see him not picked later on, and you think, oh, maybe I'll take a chance. That I would take a chance though if top players like that make it past like the 3rd round, I'd say, like the 3rd or 4th maybe, because in the first 2 rounds you kind of want to take a surefire guy. Like the list that I'm looking at compared to 4 different sports analysts is they have again, I'm gonna say the names wrong, Bryjing Robinson, who just was drafted extremely high. He was drafted 10th overall by the Atlanta Falcons, and a lot of people were wondering why they drafted him so high. They weren't wondering why Atlanta drafted a running back, because at Atlanta they are an absolutely atrocious team right now. The quarterback is a 7th round draft pick, which is ironic saying that I'm a Patriots fan, because that's exactly what Tom Brady was. So you never know. That's why I think they have Robinson going so high in the draft, in the fantasy draft, because everybody assumes that Atlanta is going to be a run-heavy team. It's important to probably follow the crowd, but also, like, if you think this player is gonna, always trust your gut. If you think this player is gonna have a good season, then take him. If you want to do a high-risk, high-reward type draft, then you can probably draft like the Saquon Barkleys, the Bryce Halls. I think it's Brees. It may be Brees, because it's spelled like Grease but with a B. The Derrick Henrys, the Tyreek Hills. Those are all high-risk, high-reward type guys that people will draft just because of the namesake. Most people will draft a guy just because he's a big name. So I would suggest to draft a guy that is a big name, but also maybe take your chances on somebody. So right now I'm gonna actually do just a mock draft. I would share my screen, but a lot of people, for some reason this isn't working. Don't know why. Oh, it's my own. Oh, Yeah, so I have a 30-second timer. I probably should have gave myself more time so I could actually think about picks and talk about them. But just this random draft, I decided to pick Robinson just because I was running out of time and I wasn't sure. But since you have 30 seconds, most leagues you have 30 seconds to draft. That's like the bare minimum time, because nobody wants to sit for like 2 minutes while somebody makes a pick. I mean, I think most teams do actually give you 2 minutes, so I am actually going to bring that up to 2 minutes. And you can also put guys in queue systems. An underrated player that I'd say this year is Christian McCaffrey. He's a little bit underrated right now. He's always been a really good player, but he's been very underrated, and he is now on the 49ers. Yeah, the 49ers, and they're a very underrated team. So they are gonna take a chance on him, and he did good the second he got there. So now I have the second pick, and I think I did a snake draft. I don't think I changed it. I did do a snake draft. So a snake draft essentially means if you pick second overall. So let's say there's 10 people in the draft. If you pick second overall, you're then picking 9th the next round. So put that into your factor of picking players. You won't have the second pick the entire time. The snake draft is a little bit better because if you do get the 10th pick, then you get the 11th pick. So you get 2 picks right in a row. You won't get like the Mahomes and the Jonathan Taylors and the Chubbs. You won't get those top players, but you may be able to get like the second round guys, like the Kelsey, and I'm not calling these guys second round guys. Like, if there's only 10 GMs in your fantasy football league, there's going to be some good guys that fall to you. And the tier system this year, it's important too to always look at updated tier systems, because right now the best running back they have in the tier 1s are McCaffrey, Eckler, Jonathan Taylor, Brian Robinson, and Nick Chubb. Now, you can just take that list point blank. I would probably look at that list and figure, who is probably not going to do good this year compared to last year. Look at Austin Eckler. He's a top player every single year, but he can never really figure out his play. Like he's always an up and down player. But a surefire pick, if you have the second overall pick, is probably Christian McCaffrey. I wish I could change this. Oh, I can. So I'm gonna do this mock draft a little differently. I'm gonna have, if you have the first pick, you kind of know who you're gonna take. So I'm actually going to click the 10th guy, the 10th position. So just let that load. So the first picks were McCaffrey, Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, which don't go off of that because this is an AI picking. Nobody picks a quarterback that early. I mean, if you really want to, it's your team. Like you really can do whatever you want. Then you will get the best quarterback. But you're kind of wasting the opportunity to draft one of the best wide receivers. Like one of the best. So a couple of the players that are available, and this list may be subjective. Like you never know. You have Cooper Kupp, who last year was the fantasy king. Last year, like he was on top of his crap, like he was on top of everything. But he's a great player, but the Rams I don't think the Rams anymore. I think they're maybe going down. A top team, you kind of have to look at the individual players. Like, let's see, Josh Jacobs a couple years ago was that big name. But then Vegas kind of started trading some of the players away, and nobody was really sure what was happening with them. So I'm not big on Josh Jacobs. I mean, he'll be a great player, and if he was there and I had the opportunity to pick him, it'd be kind of hard to pass him up. But a player like Amon St. Brown, the Detroit Lions had one of the best, if not the best, offense last year. They had a terrible defense, but they made it up by having one of the best offenses. I'm just looking down this list of different tiers of players. Another player is probably TJ Heckinson. He got traded from the Lions, which, you know, I liked him. I liked TJ Heckinson. I forgot to pick in this fake draft, so I will cancel that. Yeah, I've always liked him. Same thing with J.K. Dobson. He was literally the best running back last year, and then he got injured in week 3 to 4. So you kind of have to take that into a factor. And that was a major injury. He was out for the entire year. Will he be the same guy next year? Maybe. Will he get injured? Maybe. There's a lot to figure out and to wonder, should I draft this guy? Should I wait? Should I yada yada? But always go with your gut. If you think, and look at the stats. I mean, if you had the option between, let's say Christian McCaffrey over like Jamari Gibbs. Like, you have no idea who Jamari Gibbs is. I don't even know. I just found his name on the list. But Jamari Gibbs could turn out to be a great running back. But in the early rounds, just your gut. Take the top guy, and then once you start getting to the middle rounds, start maybe picking up on a guy that you kind of knew of, like heard of, like who's that tight end on Atlanta? He was a big name a couple years ago. He was a big name when he got drafted, and then he hasn't really found his game yet. But now he's in the 3rd year of his career, or the 2nd year in his career, which a lot of draft prospects randomly ramp up their career. In the 2nd year of their NFL careers, they always ramp their careers up for some reason. I don't know what it is about it. It's like they needed to get that 1st year out of the way, and in the 2nd year they were like amazing. So Aaron Jones, he was a big name years ago on Green Bay. He's still on Green Bay actually, but he's not really who he used to be. Would I pick him up in the later rounds? Of course. I would of course pick Aaron Jones up in the later rounds, because the Green Bay Packers don't have Rodgers anymore. They're not going to be throwing it to. I don't even know who the wide receivers are. So they're probably going to be a draft heavy, running back heavy team. If you look at, I'm just going to bring up the list of the top wide receivers, and this is the top wide receivers for the PPR league. Something is playing, and I don't know what. Okay, that was weird. So the top running back in the PPR league is Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb. Now, okay, CeeDee Lamb, he's a great player, but he hasn't really found his own yet. And I don't know if I would take the chance on him early on. But if there's a player like Garrett Wilson, now that they have Rodgers, maybe it'll be different. Maybe Rodgers will actually have a better year this year. So it's a little hard. It's hard. You have to look at last year's stats, but you also can't. Like, you have to look at it subjectively. Like, okay, he was on this team, now he's on a new team, but last year he didn't do good with these wide receivers. Maybe he'll do good with these wide receivers, but maybe not. You never know. It's very subjective. A couple of like late round wide receivers, I'd say, if they are available, is probably like Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper, he's a hit and miss guy. He's honestly a hit and miss guy. He's big, high fantasy, high risk, high reward type player because he's on what team? He's on Cleveland. And Cleveland is Cleveland's got to pick their shit up. Like that, I don't know what's going on with Cleveland. They gotta figure something out. Like Terry McLaurin, if you can get Terry McLaurin, I would probably actually take a chance on Terry McLaurin because he's always somehow a great wide receiver, and for some odd reason, I don't know why, and he always gets picked later. So if you again too with the drafts, anybody can get picked anywhere. So like if I say, oh, this guy's better in the later rounds, and then Christian McCaffrey or Cooper Kupp is available for some odd reason in the early second round, obviously take him. Like, why would you pass up on him? But if you have the first overall pick, it's a little easy to understand who you're going to pick, unless it's a snake draft. Then you go to the bottom in the second round. If you have the 10th pick, start looking at guys that you think will be available there, and the queue system is your best friend. Use the queue system because you have 2 minutes, but 2 minutes can easily go by if you start looking at stats and fall down that rabbit hole of like, oh, this guy's better because he played better for 4 weeks, but this guy's better because he had more touchdowns in 3 games. Depending on the league too, most PPR leagues go after yards and touchdowns. I think just yards, actually. I could be wrong about that. Again, I don't really look into like the stats of the different leagues. I just kind of joined the typical one because I'm still kind of new at this, but I know the stats of players. Like I do my due diligence on the players' histories and backgrounds and yada yada. DJ Moore, he's another late round pick that if you can get him later, that's kind of a steal. Jerry Jeudy, same thing. Calvin Ridley, I think Calvin Ridley got cut by the Falcons because he drunk and drove or something like that. I forget, something like that. He was arrested for something, I think. Drake London is in his second year, so that's what I was saying earlier. Most players in their second year turn out to be like amazing guys early on, at least. So if you just want to get some quick points early on in the league, draft or pick up those rookies. I mean, if you can draft them later in the later rounds, great, but I'd probably pick them up if nobody picks them up. Like I remember last year nobody picked up Garrett Wilson, and maybe it was DJ Moore. I don't know. There was somebody that I picked up last year that he had like 12 points in his first week. I'm like, what the hell? Like, I'll take a chance on him. And then he turned out to be like a stud for me, but only for like 4 to 5 weeks there. So don't assume. That's the other thing, is you can't hold on to a guy because you think the same production is gonna happen. But it's all, everything that I'm kind of saying is subjective, because like I drafted J.K. Dobbins last year. He was amazing for 4 weeks, and then he was injured, so I put him on injury reserve, and then like 3 weeks later the report came out saying he's not going to play this year, so then I just cut him. And then he came back early and somebody else picked him up for their injury reserve, and he got them like 20 points in the last 2 weeks. So it's really just if you want to take a chance and keep that guy on your injury reserve. And injury reserve doesn't take up one of your roster spots. So who's injured right now is a top guy, Cooper Kupp. I'm assuming he'll get drafted, but let's just say he doesn't and nobody picks him up. I would pick him up because he's injured, because he may come back. Unless a report comes out and confirms that he's not going to come back and he's not going to play, then I would pick him up. And the difference with different injuries with players is questionable still counts as a playable player. He can still come into the game, so you can't put him on injury reserve. Until it actually says IL on the player, you can then put them on injury reserve, IR. Anything outside of that, you have to keep them on your main roster. So if you have a team of like all questionable guys, that's a little hard to fill a team. So that's why it's kind of important to get some depth and find those guys that are injured, but not necessarily on a lot of people's radars. Let's look down just the wide receivers again. Okay, Jacoby Myers. Like I said earlier, I'm a Patriots fan, and Jacoby Myers used to play on the Patriots, and he was pretty good on the Patriots. Now he's going to Vegas, with I believe Carr. I'm just gonna look that up. Forget the Raiders QB. Oh, actually it's Jimmy Garoppolo. I totally forgot he went to Vegas. That changes actually everything about Vegas and the 49ers. Who's the 49ers? Oh, the 49ers. Okay. See? The 49ers quarterback last year was Jimmy Garoppolo, and then they had Trey Lance, who was drafted 3rd overall, and they traded way too much to move up one spot for him. And then they drafted a 7th round quarterback named Brock Purdy, and he dominated the league. Like, he was amazing. Like, and that's the thing, is a lot of these players can just thrive in the situation that they're in. Like, they were a good offensive team. They just didn't have a quarterback. Jimmy wasn't doing it for them. Trail wasn't doing it for them. But again, it's the same story of Tom Brady. He was drafted, and I'm not calling Brock Purdy Tom Brady, but like, you never know. Like, he could have another amazing fantasy football season. Now let's look at... See, all these lists are a little subjective because they have quarterbacks going first. Let's see if we can find a... Where is it? I know I have it up here. Yeah, this one. So this is overall, and this is a run heavy. So I'll just quickly go down the names: Robinson, McCaffrey, Taylor, Pollard, Chubb, Eckler, Barkley, Stevenson, Justin Jefferson. If for some odd reason, and in a lot of people's mock drafts, Justin Jefferson is going first because he's always been a top 3 pick. If you can somehow get Justin Jefferson later, you've already stolen the draft. The draft is already yours. I don't know. I personally don't think this is going to be a run-heavy draft this year because a lot of top running backs are either old, young, or on a brand new team. And all 3 of those options are not great. Like, especially the old one. Like, he's not going to get a lot of carries because that team will just want to put in the young running back. And if you also start seeing, let's say Stevenson, who's the running backs for the Patriots? If you draft Stevenson and you start seeing him starting to go down a little, and the end his backup starting to get more. So if you start seeing, where's the backup? That doesn't help me. Let's see. This here, yeah. So if you see, so the Patriots have 4 running backs on their team currently. Stevenson is obviously the starter, but if you kind of start seeing his numbers dwindle, just a little, because if it's a lot, then more people will notice. But kind of look at those little drops in numbers. If you start seeing Stevenson go down just because he's maybe getting a little cold, or like maybe he's got a lingering injury, or he's just he just doesn't have it anymore. You never know. Like players can not reach their potential in the third or fourth seasons of their career. But if you start noticing that, notice it early on, because then I would pick up the replacement. A lot of people would, if they start seeing a player's numbers just drop a little bit, they're gonna pick up his backup, because then the Patriots will play, I'm assuming, either Harris Strong or J.J. Taylor as their backup, and probably put him in for a game or two just to see how he plays. And regardless of how he plays for those 2 games, he's playing. Like, let's say he gets crushed every single down, they've still put him in for at least a couple plays. The issue though with that is, if he does get crushed every single play, they're just going to put Stevenson back in, and then you're screwed, because the guy's going to get 0 points. I would do that. I would probably pick up the running back and just take that chance, because with the running backs, it's a little, it's tough, because a lot of teams right now don't really have a starting running back, and a lot of teams right now don't have a starting quarterback. So with starting wide receivers, you kind of know who's going to be the starter unless they get injured. With a running back, that all varies on the quarterback. Like with the Patriots, they have Mac Jones. Mac Jones, he hasn't really established himself yet. I don't know if he will. I personally don't know if he will, and that's tough saying that, because he came from Alabama. He was a top quarterback. Like, it's Alabama. Like, they always have top quarterbacks. He was a top 15, I think, pick, and the Patriots were a team that needed a quarterback. Everybody thought Mac Jones was the savior, but he hasn't really been that savior, and the Patriots don't really necessarily have the assets to go get a Trey Lance or to go get a Brock Purdy. I know I'm using the same 2 quarterbacks from the same team, but they don't really have the assets to move up the draft or to go get a young quarterback, because a lot of teams don't necessarily want to trade a young quarterback unless that quarterback is doing amazing. Like, be on the lookout for Trey Lance, because he may get traded, but Brock Purdy may have a crappy second year. So you never know. It's honestly hard to really know who is the. You kind of have to wait every single week. Like, you have to kind of change your mind every single week, and just kind of hope for the best. That the guy that you put in, because the lineups get confirmed after you have to lock in your selections for that week. Now we're going to talk about one of the more interesting positions in football, the tight end. A lot of people treat them as wide receivers, but the tight end is more there to get touchdowns. So if you see your team not getting a lot of touchdowns but getting a lot of yards, then probably pick up a couple tight ends. I think in most leagues you can have... in most leagues you actually have 1 starting tight end, but if you can get 2 starting tight ends... yeah, that's the other thing. You can also have a wide receiver, running back, tight end position where you can put one of those 3 positioned players in that area. So we're going to look at the top tight ends. The top tight end obviously is Travis Kelce, and if you guys haven't listened to his podcast, him and his brother do one of the best sports podcasts I've probably heard. Well, Pat McAfee's is pretty good too, and Spittin' Chicklets. But that's subjective. One of my Kyle Pitts, that's his name. That's the guy I was trying to think of earlier on Atlanta. One of my, actually a couple of my favorite and a little bit underrated tight ends are Darren Waller and Dallas Goodrow. I think that's how you say his name. Tight ends are also very subjective. Dawson Knox. Nobody really knows who that is, but he's the starting tight end on the I was about to say the Sabres, on the Buffalo Bills. In this particular list, they have this guy ranked. Somebody has him ranked, not ranked, and then all the other people have him ranked 21st, 19th, 20th. Like, so that's the type of guy that you can. Sorry. That's the type of guy that you can find a good value on later in the draft. But if you can get like George Kittle or Kyle Pitts early on, I'd take a chance on those guys. And with the tight end, anybody can kind of be a star tight end, because most of the time the tight end is there to just block a play. But sometimes, I'd say it's like 50-50. 50% of the time, he gets opened. But I mean, if you want a good star wide receiver, oh, that's the other thing to look at. Look at the two-way players. Look at the running back who's also a wide receiver, like Christian McCaffrey. So you can kind of get double the points, because even though he's a wide receiver in one game, you can still put him in the running back position and get wide receiver points. And it'll still work. Like you won't get less points, I believe. But it's important to look at players like that. The what was that guy's name on the Patriots that was both? It was something White. That was both a running back and a wide receiver, kind of at the same time. Most of the running backs today, they don't do that anymore. I don't know, besides McCaffrey, I don't know a wide receiver. I don't know a running back that will play wide receiver, because most running backs are just running backs. Like, they'll just stay as running backs. And what is this list? I clicked and wasn't paying attention. Oh. Kicker. I'm just going down the list. Kicker's very subjective. Like, yeah, there is your top kicker in Justin Tucker. Yeah, there's your top kicker in Justin Tucker. He's always been the number one kicker. He's the best kicker, but wait on kickers. Like, you're gonna want to wait on kickers. Like, probably like dead last, because kickers are, again, subjective. Like, I'm not saying it's easy to be a kicker, but I'm saying, like, most players can take the top spot week in and week out. But you can always kind of rely on the top guys like Butker, Koo, Bass, Elliott, Dicker, Myers, McPherson, Carlson, and obviously Tucker. So I'm gonna kind of move on from kickers, because kickers are subjective. Like, anybody's going to be the star in the kicker position. Now, one of my second favorite one to look at is the defense. And a lot of people think, whatever, I'll just get like a shit defense or whatever. Like, I don't really care. Defense doesn't give me a lot of points, but defense can give you a lot of points if if you pick for that week a guy who obviously you're not going to pick a guy who gets injured, but anything can happen. It's fantasy football, and it's different teams. There could be a guy who doesn't play that you think is going to play. There could be a guy who gets injured during the game. There could be a guy who just is not having a good game, and that's like 30 points right there, maybe even more. With defense this year, it's a little more locked down than in the past, because I remember always switching my defense up, but now most teams have kind of made a name for themselves. Like I mentioned earlier, I wish you could I guess you kind of are drafting offense, but the Lions had one of the best offensive teams last year, but one of the worst defensive teams last year. This year, it's the 49ers, which you wouldn't think they'd have a great team, but you're thinking of the offense. The offense, I mean, the 49ers could have a good offense this year, but they've always kind of had a great defense. Like, but it's tough because looking back, the 49ers weren't necessarily one of the bigger teams with one of the better defenses. The Eagles were actually, just looking at this list again, the Eagles are now not ranked in 18th and 4th and 7th and 2nd. That's the other thing to look at, is look at where they're ranked across the board. Don't just look at one position. Don't just look at, okay, like they're ranked 4th, I'll draft them pretty early on. It's like, no, look at what other people are doing. If somebody's drafting them between 4 and 18, then probably split the difference unless you start seeing a bunch of defense go off the board. That's the other thing that I personally do, is I don't draft a certain position until I see a majority of it going off the board, or I just get a hunch about a player. Like the Ravens defense last year or 2 years ago was impeccable. Like, it was an amazing defense. Now it's ranked 10th, 14th, 6th, 11th, 15th, 12th. It's subjective. One of the best examples, both the Rams and the Chiefs have the worst defense this year. The Rams, who just won the Super Bowl last year, I think. Maybe it was the Chiefs. I don't know. Anyways, it's not ranked, 9th, not ranked. But this is just people's opinion. Like, you never know what's going to happen. You never know if the 49ers are going to be crap, and you never know if the Rams are going to be the best team this year. I'll jump back into this, the fantasy draft that I had, the mock draft that I had. Do mock drafts, because especially in, I forget the program, you can actually do mock drafts against real people. And that's important because everybody's going to draft differently, and it gives you a sense of, like, okay, like in most mock drafts, let's say Breece Hall was available until like the 5th round. Like, I don't have to draft him in the 3rd round and waste my 3rd round pick. But always make sure you're drafting a guy of value. Never draft a guy that doesn't have any value. And that's a little subjective, because you could draft a guy that has been injured, was injured all last year and still injured this year. But if it shows that he's going to come back, then probably pick him up. But when you do a mock draft of real people, you can see where people pick certain players and who might be available. Every league is different, every group of people is different, but as long as you listen to your gut and you draft your guy, I think you will have the best draft. I mean, everybody assumes they're going to have the best draft, but just kind of look at look at the honestly, it's your team. You can draft whoever you want. What I personally do is in the first 2 rounds, I kind of go back and forth from wide receiver to running back. But since I think this year is going to be a not so heavy running back year, then I'll probably do 2 wide receivers and then 2 running backs. Though, if I start seeing a bunch of running backs go off the board, then I'll probably take a big running back. Unless there's not any big names available, I'm not just going to pick one just because everybody else is picking one. I'll pick a wide receiver. So always pay attention to who's going off the board and when. Well, maybe not when, just who's going off the board. If you start seeing a bunch of 1 positions going off the board, then probably draft that position, because then a top player is going to get picked. But generally, most people know not to draft a quarterback, like before the 3rd, maybe even the 4th round. Yeah, so I'm going to do this draft again. I will change my position. Sorry. Oh, that was a standard. I guess there's a PBR and a standard. I guess I just do standards. But I'm actually going to change my thing to 5. I'm going to change it to PBR because I feel like I know the difference. I'm just going to let that load. So the first, this is the computer picking, and they're just kind of picking the best available guys. Nobody's going to draft a Patrick Mahomes this early. But the first guy that got picked was Jefferson, and look at where everybody else is picking that guy. And it'll tell you too. So Austin Eckler, he has the best he's gonna get picked. The highest he's gonna get picked is 1st. The lowest he's gonna get picked is 14. So if you really think Austin Eckler is gonna have a great season this year, pick him. But like Bijan Robinson, who's a rookie, he hasn't even stepped on the field this year. His best is 2nd. His worst is 133rd. So that's a big gap to either wait on him, but he's probably going to get picked high. And then you have your Josh Allen, which is 3rd best and 20th. It's important to look at the rankings, but it's also important to not choose a guy too early. Just kind of be on the lookout for that. Like you don't want to draft a Josh Allen in the 1st round. Nobody drafts quarterbacks in the 1st round unless you're brand new and whatever. I mean, if you want to draft a quarterback in the 1st round, that's your choice, but you're gonna miss out on top wide receivers. Like if I'm picking at 5th right now, I will probably pick let's see, I'll just go to the wide receivers. If I'm picking 5th and Cooper Kupp is available, I'm 1000, but then there's Stephon Diggs, but I'm probably going to take Cooper Kupp. And so I'm going to let the draft do its thing, and it's a snake draft, and so now 10 teams have picked before me instead of 5. Now I'm at the bottom. And since I just drafted a wide receiver, I'm going to look at what wide receivers are left. So we got Lamb, Devontae Adams, AJ Brown, Wilson, Waddle, and then it just goes down the list. Running backs, we have Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, Bryce Hall, who's injured, Najee Harris, who was a great player last year. He had a breakout year because it was his 2nd year in the league. But I'm not really seeing a lot of big names, so I may go back to the wide receivers and probably choose AJ Brown, because that's a good selection. If you can get AJ Brown or a top player like that later in the draft, then that's amazing value. Now we're in the 3rd round, and yeah, there's quarterbacks going off the board, but this is a computer, so they're going to be taken off the board anyways. So I'm going to look at the running backs. because I'm a little low on my running backs, J.K. Dobson is there, Najee Harris is there. I'm probably going to take Najee Harris because the Steelers are a run-heavy team. Now, we're in the 4th. And for most, oh, this is an interesting, most teams actually don't have that. That's another thing to look out for, is what teams have picked what. If you start seeing one team who picks right before you, draft all of the best wide receivers, and he only has wide receivers on his team, like he has like 4 already, it's probably in your best interest in your next pick, if it's a snake draft, even if it's not in a snake draft, to pick one of the best running backs. So right now it's the 4th. My team, I believe, is 2 wide receivers and a running back. So I'm probably going to take another running back. And J.K. Dobson, Kenneth Walker actually would have been maybe a better pick that I didn't see his name. That's why it's important to do your due diligence. So right now it's the 5th, and I still probably won't be picking a quarterback. Again, this is the computer, so they're going to be picking all of the better quarterbacks. Bryce Young, if you want to take a chance on a quarterback, obviously he's going to be a starting quarterback. If you want to take a chance on a high risk, high reward guy, pick Bryce Young. He's I don't know how he's going to do. Nobody does. Nobody can see the future. But it's a good bet that he may do good. He may do great. He'll be the starting quarterback of the Carolina Panthers. But the Panthers don't really have a lot of players for him to throw to. But that's never really been an issue for a lot of teams. Like what was his name? The wide receiver on the Packers before Rodgers left. Whatever his name was. He had a great couple weeks there, and a lot of people were picking him up. So we're going to look back at the running backs. I did just draft a running back. DeAndre Swift is now with the Eagles, and I have always liked DeAndre Swift. He's a good running back, and he was a good running back for me last year. So you know what? I'm going to pick Isaiah, I'm going to say his name wrong, Isaiah Pacheco is actually a fantastic quarterback. Now, this is a key bit of information. Alvin Kamara is right here at the bottom. And you think, oh, Alvin Kamara, like, that's a great value at this pick. But he's kind of fallen off quite a bit. And, I mean, you can take a chance on him. That's your prerogative. But personally, for me, I'm going to probably take DeAndre Swift. Because Kamara hasn't really been all that great at the last couple of seasons. Now we're in the sixth round. There's one of my favorite players. So we are picking. Always look at the numbers too, to know what number. Okay, we're picking at 68. So there's both Drake London and Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin, like, he's a great pick at this round, at this section of the draft. If Terry McLaurin is available for you, I would definitely pick him up. And it's important to pay attention to what the analysts are saying, and it's important to go with your gut. You kind of have to go in the middle. So since I don't have a quarterback, I'm probably going to take a quarterback at this round. I've also forgotten. Great example. I completely forgot to look at tight ends. But if you look at the tight ends right now, Gerard Everett's available, Mike Gillespie's available, Dawson Knox is available. If you can get Dawson Knox this late, so I'm going to take Dawson Knox because that's a great value at this pick. I don't have a quarterback. I probably would have taken a good quarterback earlier, but I'm just going to take a quarterback right now. Kyler Murray is not going to be available here, but I'm going to take him because he is. But you never know. That could happen. He was injured. He was on the injury reserve And the computer's not going to take them, but a real person probably would, like way earlier than this. Well, maybe not earlier. I don't know. A majority of people do tend to wait on quarterbacks. So if I can just see my team. So right now, I don't have a lot of depth. I don't have a second quarterback as well. I am going to then pick. I'll take a chance on somebody. You know what? I'm actually going to take Tyler Higbee. I'm going to take Tyler Higbee because he's always kind of been an underrated tight end in my mind. And then you're just going to have to kind of wait to see who's available. Jimmy Garoppolo definitely won't be available this late. Again, I would also probably wait on drafting the quarterback. I may have drafted Murray too early. Probably start drafting a little by little your depth before you get your starting quarterback. But if you're in a league that quarterbacks start kind of getting taken off the board, if you start seeing 2 quarterbacks get taken almost directly behind each other, then probably pick a quarterback. If you see one, just wait on it. I know you'll miss out on the top quarterbacks unless you want to take a top quarterback. It's your prerogative. It's your team. You can literally draft however you want. You can draft all wide receivers and then take a chance on running backs. If you personally think that this year is going to be a low running back year. Sorry about that. I don't know what that was. Just going to double check. Oh wait. I will do that later. Sorry about this. It's an important reminder that I want to do. Okay. Now it's my pick again, and Jimmy Garoppolo. He plays for Vegas, and Vegas they have some great players on their team. If you can get Jimmy Garoppolo this late, again he's a quarterback, but if you can get him this late, that's pretty good. I know I just talked about depth, but I was a little distracted. That's why it's important to pay attention to the draft. Now it's my pick again, and I don't really have a lot of depth, but I do have one extra wide receiver, so I'm probably going to take a running back. Let's see, Damian Harris, that was the running back for the Patriots. Now he's on Buffalo. Who is Buffalo's running backs? That's very important. I'm going to quickly look that up. That didn't help at all, but I'm going to look at who's their starting running back. If it is it's James Cook. James Cook will probably not be their starting running back. It'll probably be Damian Harris. So Damian Harris this late in the draft is fantastic value. Jamal Williams actually is a little bit better, but see, that's the thing, because I picked too many wide receivers early on. I can't take. I mean, I could take Jamal Williams because he's a great running back, and running back's a little subjective because Damian Harris isn't the starting quarterback, or isn't the starting running back, and this is where you kind of get stuck in like the, ooh, who should I pick? Should I get one more wide receiver and be a little bit screwed on running backs because I think it's going to be a low draft? Actually, sorry, my mistake. Jamal Williams is a running back. He plays for the Saints, so I'm not. You know what? I'm not going to draft him. I'm going to draft Damian Harris. I'm going to stick to my guts and draft Damian Harris, and then probably next I will draft. I'm definitely going to be waiting on defense and kickers. Those are probably going to be my last 2 kickers. Another thing that I do a lot that not a lot of people do is I pick 3 quarterbacks. And you'd think like, oh, a lot of people would do that, but I haven't seen a lot of teams do that. I always pick 2 top quarterbacks, and then my third one is always like a young one. Like a new one. Like, let's look at the list. So we have Desmond Ridder, we have Kyle Trask, we have Bailey Zappi. Bailey Zappi did fantastic. for the Patriots last year, like in the couple games, and they had the slogan from of Zappy Time. So I'm actually going to take another player that is probably the most underrated. He's now just a straight quarterback, but was Heineke. Heineke was a great quarterback last year or the year before, but I'm actually going to take, I'm just looking at some names here, I'm actually going to take Bailey Zappi. I probably should have done more depth before drafting a quarterback at this point, but now I only have 2 depth spots, and since I drafted a running back, I won't draft a 3rd tight end unless there's a lot of top tight ends available. So I'm going to look at the list again, and I'm going to go to all and see who's available. There's not really any big names available, so I may just take a chance on somebody. Actually, a guy this late in the draft shouldn't be this late in the draft. I'm going to take him, Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen is the definition of high risk, high reward. He can either have a shit game or he can have an amazing game. That's your like, should I take a chance on this guy? Another player that kind of started to work his way up the ranks a little is Kenneth Gainwell on the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm gonna draft him because I just drafted a wide receiver. So me drafting Gainwell is my depth. That's my depth completely done. Now everybody is picking defense, so I'm going to go and pick probably this is actually a good site to use for a lot of new people. So this is the draftwizards.fantasypros.com. It actually will show you where each player is according to its tier. But the issue with that is, don't just pick the guy in the 6th tier thinking he'll automatically be better. Nothing is automatic in fantasy football. But I'm going to see. So a good example was Clyde Edwards-Helaire was the starting running, like the shutdown starting running back for the Chiefs like 3 years ago, and then he's still on the Chiefs, and he's just not himself anymore. A player that was great last year was Michael Carter on the Jets, but he only was good for a couple weeks here. The same thing with Gus Edwards. But since I drafted all of my depth, I'm just going to take the best available. It's a little subjective when drafting defense because it's hard to know that. I actually forgot about kicker. I'm actually going to draft a kicker right now just because I need a kicker. And so everybody's going to, the Eagles defense got taken. So now that I'm on my last pick, I will pick defense. The defense. I will probably, it's a little subjective again, so I'm just going to choose the best available team, which is the Chiefs. So that's the round. I can get an analyst of my draft, but just lost my team. Oh well. That's okay. It was actually a very good draft, but that was against computers. You're not going to have a very good draft. You're going to lose guys that you put in your queue system that you think is not going to be there, but other people are going to look at that guy. So always have 2 to 3 people lined up, so you're not rushing when your 5 guys that you have in your queue system all get taken. Have at least like 10 guys in your queue system. But I mean, be informative of, like, if you're picking 5th and Justin Jefferson somehow falls, don't pick the guy in your queue system, pick that. Like, I would assume you would know that, but there was something else I was going to say and I totally forgot. Oh yeah, after the draft is over, look for the guys that are available, Because like I said earlier, always draft a guy with value. Don't just draft a guy just to draft a guy. Don't just pick a name because you know his name, or he's got a funny sounding name or something. Like, actually pick a guy with value. But look through the guys that weren't drafted, because now you have more time. Now you have more time to look at those guys and just double check and look at and see, oh, this player actually is better than my guy that I have selected. Yeah, that honestly should be everything that I can tell you. I will probably be doing more of these. I'm gonna try and do more episodes, probably not specifically on fantasy football, and maybe not specifically on sports, but my next podcast will probably be, what's the day? Saturday? It's not a Friday? Maybe next Friday, depending on what I'm doing. But yeah, this was, thank you for listening on, I already forgot the name of my podcast. Oh my god, my mind is blanking to what it's called. Touching Grass podcast while sitting on my ass. Yeah, that's it. But thank you, and have a fantastic and rock on day.